you've got Antonio Gibson receptions over. Can you tell me why? Uh, I won't. I'm going to talk about Gibson a little bit in the DFS section. I'm a little torn on him, so I'm very interested to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I'm going to play this if it's at 4.5 receptions or lower. There's no line right now. I think probably because Brian Robinson is on the injury report. So probably waiting to see what his status is. But regardless, I think I like this over because he's seen a really good usage rate lately. We got a good blend of strong recent track record and a favorable matchup here. He's hit 5 receptions in 4 of his last 6 games. So strong recent usage. He also gets a good matchup in the Jets defense. Obviously, the Jets have a strong defense, but their scheme allows for more opportunities for running backs. In fact, the Jets defense sees the highest running back target share in the league. And like we've talked about throughout the season, one of the factors here is that they have a very low blitz rate. The Jets blitz on only at a 17% rate. That's the second lowest rate in the league. That typically means your running back isn't staying in to help out blocking as often. So he's out available as an option in the passing game more. And so that, factors in here as well. So given the fact that they are trying to get Gibson involved and they will probably have a good opportunity to do so, given the Jets scheme, I think this is a good opportunity to bet the over for him.
Yeah, good. That's good because he's not getting a lot of ownership in early DFS. And, I think people are tired of Gibson. He was a sleeper who became a post type sleeper, who became a post type sleeper, who now is just sound asleep. Jahmyr Gibbs, we've done a lot with rushing and receiving overs this year. You're on the Gibbs over, and another guy that I will be talking about in DFS.
Yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs, longest rush over 13.5 yards. We talked about this last week, how this is probably becoming a matchup proof prop for us that we were just going to ride out to the end of the year. And we're going to put that to the test this week because the Vikings are the #1 defense at limiting big plays. Only 1.1% of running back carries against Minnesota go for 15 or more yards. That's the lowest rate in the league. But I think Gibbs just falls in this matchup proof category. Nick Chubb was that guy for us last year. We played him almost all season on the over on his longest rush, regardless of what the matchup was, and it paid off, hitting an incredible percentage, something like 80-85% he hit last year. And Gibbs seems to be in that category now. He's ran for 20 or more yards for his longest rush in 8 of his last 10 games. And so if you're putting up those kinds of numbers week in and week out, there's really not, the line never goes above 20 yards. I believe there was only 1 week last year where Nick Chubb's number hit above 20 yards, despite the fact that he was also churning out 20-yard runs week after week. It just seems like the sportsbooks won't put the line higher than that. In this case with Gibbs, it's down at 13.5 still. There has been no adjustment to the rate at which he's breaking off these incredibly long runs, possibly because his usage isn't incredibly high, not as high as certainly a guy like Chubb last year. So that's got to factor into your thinking a little bit, but we've seen enough of a track record. Like I said, 8 of 10 games, his longest rushes hit 20 yards. So if he's doing that week after week, we have to keep betting it, even against a defense like the Vikings. We've got a little bit of evidence that he can do this even against a good defense too, because just a couple weeks ago against the Bears, they ranked 4th by that metric of limiting long runs. And sure enough, Gibbs hit the over. He broke off a 36-yard run in that game. So we even have seen him against a very good run defense, and he's broken through to hit this over. So at this point, we're going to ride this out through the rest of the season. Doesn't matter who they play. Doesn't really even matter to me what the line is. They could, take it up to 17, 18 yards, and I'm still going to play the over based on how he's producing.
Yeah, I like it. And I am not the best at everything, right? And I think one of the keys to life is being humble enough to know that you make mistakes and being willing to adjust quickly when you do. I didn't draft a lot of Gibbs this year in best ball. I did when he would drop to the 4th round, but not in the 3rd. And early on, it looked like I was right. The reason why Montgomery was playing ahead of him, but when Montgomery got hurt, it gave the Lions a chance to see what Gibbs could do. And he did something that I didn't know he could do, because he wasn't even asked to do it in college, which is to be a real contributor in the red zone. But I am all about Gibbs the rest of the way and going forward, because he's shown not only the things that were obvious on tape of how special he was, but he also has proven he can do what we didn't think he can do. And the sky is the limit for him, I think, Ryan.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's running behind arguably the best run blocking offensive line in the league, so that's certainly a big factor in him uh, doing what he can do, even in some short yardage situations when he gets those opportunities. We probably maybe undervalued that aspect and just what a change that was, because Alabama, despite their reputation the past couple of years, has had a very poor offensive line, and so that was probably a fact. In hindsight, that was probably a factor in why he struggled so much in those situations in college, and now he goes to the NFL where he's running behind a fairly dominant offensive line, and that has certainly made a difference for him.
Yeah, and if you give that guy an inch, he can literally take a mile.
Mhm.
Speaking of really impressive rookies, I had this guy as my third favorite rookie running back coming out, and I didn't think he'd be even as good as he turned out to be. You're on De'Von Achane this week.
Yeah, I'll be on the over on his receiving yards at 24.5. It's a little bit higher than I was expecting. It took a nice jump from last week, but that's a reaction to the fact that he's been used more in the passing game as of late. Over half of his receptions on the year have come in the last 3 games. So they're obviously making an adjustment here with the offense and using him a little bit differently and trying to get him more involved in the passing game, which I think absolutely makes sense. He's the type of running back that you want to use in the passing game. He's hit 24 more yards in 3 straight games. And I think this game against the Cowboys has some shootout potential. Obviously, the Cowboys have a very good defense, but this is the only game on the slate with a total over 50. Miami's favored by only 1 point right now. That combination obviously screams shootout potential. And I think if this does end up being one of the more higher scoring games, if it reaches a point late in the game where it's back and forth a little bit, Achane's going to continue to stay involved throughout the contest. And with a running back like this and a number that's relatively low still at 24.5 yards, he can do that in one play with his explosive ability. So this is the type of running back that I love betting the receiving yards over when it's in a relatively low spot like this, just because we've seen how explosive he can be. He can, even if he doesn't get a 25-yard reception, he could only end up with 2 receptions. But if one of them is 18 yards, it becomes very easy for him to hit the over on this. So he's the type of running back that this is the perfect prop to play with.
Would finding out that Tyreek Hill is active change your feeling on this prop?
No, I don't think so, because like I said, his usage goes back a couple weeks now. So I think this has been a conscious effort late in the season to get him more involved in the passing game. Obviously, if Hill's out, it probably increases the probability of him hitting this over, just because again, Achane is those plays where you might want to get Hill involved on some of the shorter underneath routes. Achane is a guy that you can use in the same way. But a lot of Hill's damage comes down the field, and you're not using Achane in that way either. So, I don't think he's completely tied to it in a way that would make me swing one way or the other on this prop based on Hill's availability.